Hey y'all, and welcome to Life on a Farm. So again, I'm going to be hitting a family series, and I have shared with you guys really my passion for the structure of the family. I have done 2 videos really just kind of talking out about the structure of the family and the importance there. I've talked about rendering children and what that looks like, really even just for my household, but the benefits it comes from discipline your children within the home. But the whole foundation, I feel like, all stems from this right here, what we're going to be talking about today. And ladies, please don't feel left out, because I'm going to be coming after you guys next. But really, men being the foundation of the home and kind of what that looks like. Now, I personally feel like a strong family structure can happen when men are rooted where they're supposed to be. When men, which are the leaders of our home, are not doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, then you're gonna see really a whole trickle of effects that happen from men not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I want to get into that right now and really encourage some of you men. Now, I know that most of the people that watch me are women, but even if you're young or looking for a spouse, these are some really wonderful things, ladies, to keep in mind that you need to be looking for, because really I feel like when this lacks in the family, it's setting the family up for a whole lot of chaos. So men, you got to step up, you got to be men, you got to act like men, you've got to put on your big boy pants, and I mean in a totally different way than what you probably think. So let's jump into that right now. So that's kind of what I want to start off talking about. Men act like men. What does that actually look like? Well, in today's world, it's a whole different, it is so many different takes on what it looks like to be a man. You have leftist liberal loonies that will tell you a man is subjected to be whatever it wants to be. It can change. He can be them, they, it, we, us, she, he, him. It can be whatever it wants. But that's not the real truth. And I think the majority of y'all that watch me already know that that is purely of Satan. But something that's very overlooked, I have a feeling this is going to really step on some toes. And ladies, please don't forget, I have a whole nother session that we're going to be talking about what wives and mothers should be doing as well. But today is geared specifically for men. Now, our culture as a whole, even the leftist loonies that have those ideas, it all stems from the same root, is selfishness. We love to live for ourselves, but what is the truth? What is the absolute truth of what being a real man is supposed to look like? Leading your family, loving your wife, disciplining your children. What is all that actually supposed to look like? So I'm always going to be the one to tell you that those things come from Scripture. And Ephesians 5:25 says this specifically: husbands are instructed to love their wives as Christ loves the church. So with that being said, let's talk about what Christ did for the church. Christ laid down his life for the church, which means husbands, you ought to be man enough to say, if a robber comes in my home, who's going to be the first person by the bed? I hope you don't send your wife to do that. Man, get up out of that bed and go see who is there. You are willing to lay down your life. You're willing to take someone on or take a bullet for the sake of your family, right? You're willing to be the one to fight that battle. That is a tip of the iceberg, what it looks like to be a man, to lay down their life physically, but not only physically, mentally, spiritually, and in a physical aspect of not really death, but to lay down that selfish aspect, right? So, you know what? going fishing every other weekend with your buddy and leaving your wife at home, that's not healthy, okay? That's not healthy. You and your wife were designed to be one, and when you're not there in that equation, it's hard for your wife to understand her wholeness if part of her is always missing. So we all work, right? 8 to 5. Busy on the weekends, chores at home in the afternoons, kids going from here to there, and then if you're gone all weekend, it's like, how do you expect her to know you if you're not ever there? I don't care if that's fishing, I don't care if that's hunting season, I don't care if that's gym time, I don't care if that's running marathons, I don't care if it's taking on extra jobs, which sometimes you have to do what you have to do financially, but always ask yourself, is it worth my marriage? Because if you're gone all of the time, it will impact your marriage. Will it take 6 months? Will it take a year? Will it take 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Eventually, if you're constantly putting your wife on the back burner to do what you want to do, and your wife is not part of that, your marriage will suffer. So not only being a man takes saying, I will lay down my physical life for my family, but that also means your selfishness life of your family too. Not always going to do the things that you want to do. You and your wife are one, and by detaching yourself and being gone all the time, how can you expect her to feel loved? How can you expect her to know who you are anymore if you're not ever with her because you're with your buds, even if it is guys, and you're only there maybe sometimes at night just to sleep in the bed, just to have your needs met? That is not a healthy way to do your marriage. So I'm really encouraging you to think about things outside of the box. Think about your wife first. Your wife comes before your buddies, okay? You did not marry your friends. You did not marry your buddies. You married your wife. She is first. Bring her flowers, okay? If it might not be Valentine's Day, it might not be her birthday, it might not be y'all's anniversary, get her flowers anyway. Keep your flowers fresh. It doesn't have to be for a special occasion. So here's the thing too with something like that, right? Is it might not be flowers. It might be picking up her favorite candy bar that she likes to eat every once in a while. It might be saying, hey honey, let's find a babysitter. Me and you, let's just go out on a spontaneous date, right? Little things that let her know that you're thinking about her. It's called acts of love, okay? That's what it's called. Love is a verb. Verbs are actions, things that you do. So a little bit of an English lesson there, but I think it will help you understand. You can say, I love you. I can tell my dog, I love you, dog, but unless I feed my dog, I play with my dog, I clean up behind my dog won't, I pet my dog, let him jump in my lap, run with him, whatever that looks like. If I don't feed him, don't clean up behind him, don't pet him, my dog is not going to understand. That relationship will be totally different, and the same as your marriage. I hate to compare it to a dog, but it's just what came to mind, because that relationship has been nourished. I've been present. I've been meeting needs. That dog will understand that it's loved by my actions. Therefore, the same thing will happen in your marriage when you're there, when you're present, when you're showing actions to your spouse that you love your spouse. And if you keep on reading in Ephesians 5, you will get to verse 28, and it will tell you this, that husbands are to love their wives as they love themselves. There has to be action within your marriage to show your wife that you love her. You can't just say the words. Understand that men are not built emotionally like women are built. But to have a thriving and very well structured relationship with your spouse, it takes effort, it takes time, it takes attention. and it takes selflessness. So I'm going to talk about a couple of more things that I hope that I mentioned that will help you if maybe say, well, you know, hey, I haven't done this in a long time, or you know what, she's right, maybe I should think about this a little bit more, or hey, I'm just willing to do whatever it takes to get my marriage better, or hey, we're kind of on the line and things aren't looking great. Implement some of these things and you will see a difference in your marriage. So honestly, I feel like the number one and most important way that a man can make his marriage thrive is when he is being the spiritual leader of the household. And what that looks like, I know it's going to be a little bit different for most people, but what I'm saying is praying with your wife, praying with your family, redirecting things that are not biblical within the family, redirecting conversations or thoughts, and pointing those things back to scripture. So there are so many things that men should and could do within a marriage, within a family, where he is being the spiritual leader of the household. Now, I'm not saying that you have to sit down and have an hour Bible study with your family every day, okay? But I'm saying if you're putting yourself in the Word and you are being the spiritual leader of your household and doing just a couple of those things that I just mentioned, then it's going to greatly impact your marriage. I honestly feel like it is not the women's position to be having to spiritually guide their family, and that is a burden for your wife if she is having to do those things. So just right off the top, number one, a man within the household should be leading his family spiritually and taking that role. And it is very, very serious, but that is not the wife's job. So do not pawn that off on her. It is a burden for the wife, and it is the man's job spiritually to be the leader of the household. And I've really already mentioned being physically present with your wife. And you know, if your mindset is, you know, I'm fixing to go golfing every weekend, when the weather's beautiful, I'm gone. That is not the right approach to, I'm not saying don't go out with your friends, okay? Do not get me wrong. I'm saying making it a habit of picking your friends over your wife is really a huge problem. That is selfish. Not only is it selfish, but you're not being present with your wife, and it is like putting her on the back burner. And you know, when the husband is selfish enough to do that and then wonder why she wants a divorce, or she finds somebody that will give her attention, it's never, then we play this blame game. So where does it start? It starts with the man being present. Now, sometimes will those things still happen because we're flesh and we live in a sinful world? Yes, absolutely. But if you look at statistically, for a man who is present in his wife's life, that statistically their chances of marriage are going to thrive, and there is going to be a less chance of divorce there if the man is putting his selfish desires to the side and intentionally being more aware of being not only physically present with his wife, but also mentally. Football used to be a big thing in our house. It's not really anymore since all of the kneeling and changing the anthem and all that stuff. We kind of have disconnected completely from the NFL. I've told you guys some of that before, but regardless if it's your phone, if it's the TV, or whatever that looks like, men and ladies, listen, because if you cannot conversate with a man who will not pay you any attention, think long and hard. So men, when your wife approaches you to talk or to tell you something or share something with you, detach from what you're being distracted from and put your attention on her. And don't get me wrong, guys, I told you I'm gonna come after the ladies in a little while, so don't get too upset about what I'm saying to men, because it is a team effort. But I just want to address the men first and foremost, because I feel like a lot of this that I'm talking about within marriages and families really weigh in so much on the men, and it is so important for men to really act like men and stop being selfish babies and toddlers and wanting to do me, because when we get in that ring of thinking, oh, life revolves around me, everything's about me, and then you wonder why the other person wants to like not be around that, because they're not involved in that. It's only me. So just throwing out some warnings, some advice, some guidance that I hope men can take and actually use to make their marriages better. When we have good marriages, we can raise good children. And the last thing I want to address, really, this is not, obviously, y'all, I cannot give y'all a rundown in 15, 20, 30 minutes on how to make your marriage great, because it's so vast of a conversation, but just some things to meditate on and to think about. But also another one that I honestly feel like is a huge ordeal, especially for men, is communication. There are a lot of men, Colby is one of them, that will be like, hey, let's talk about whatever. I'm kind of on the flip side of that, and I know this happens some, but there are a lot of women that want to sit down and just talk about their feelings and their emotions and what's going on, and a lot of men are like, I'm rough and tough, and I don't have to talk it out. But there are a lot of women that are geared towards, again, like I said, I'm specifically not one of them, but geared more to talk about, I just want to tell you all of this. And it is important that you learn how to communicate with your spouse and read them. And if they say, oh, it's just fine, or what is that really signaling? Or if they do want to sit down and say, hey, I want to tell you all about it, sit down and listen. Communication, gather her thoughts and her needs and help her through that, or y'all two work through whatever together, but don't act like it's not there. Don't act like you can't hear her out, because she will eventually stop coming to you and find somebody to replace you if that's her need, or she wants help, or she just wants somebody to talk to, or to make her feel good, or whatever that looks like. And that's not what you want for a healthy marriage. You don't want to be replaced. And I'm not advertising or promoting that at all. I'm saying that's reality. That's what we see over and over and over again. So to be selfless, love her unconditionally with acts of kindness. It's with actions that you speak love, not your mouth. With communication, with being the spiritual leader first and foremost of your household, with helping her with dishes, with helping her with tending to children. Don't think, well, I do X, Y, and Z and she does X, Y, and Z. It's teamwork. I don't mind going out and doing animal work. I don't mind going out and drilling something in. Colby doesn't mind helping me with the dishes. He does not mind helping me with the kids, bathe them, do laundry, whatever that looks like. We are a team. And to say, well, that's just her job. No, it's both of y'all's job. You're a team. You're a team. So just some of those things that could barely scratch the surface. Communication and finances is a huge deal, because I probably personally feel like dropping the ball on the spiritual leader as a spiritual leader is probably the first and foremost issue. Second being lack of communication or lack of discipline in the financial area, where you and your spouse are not on the same budget, you're not on the same financial plan, and then one thing leads to another, and it is a hot mess there. So to communicate those things, to stay on a budget, financially, be smart together. And those are just some things that you can use to work on your marriages to make them better. But first and foremost, I will say this: if Christ is first in all, and you are honestly seeking out what Scripture says about how to keep and tend your marriages, which we 100% and completely lack in our society today, because our world has become all about me and my wants, and it is destroying families all across our nation. We see so much, well, I want to be happy, well, I want this and he doesn't or she doesn't. It can't be about I anymore. When we get married, it's not I anymore. We have honestly forgotten the seriousness of the vows that we make when we get married. It is a commitment unto God, and that is taken so flippantly now. I do know that things happen, and I do know that in situations like a divorce, abusive situation, divorce is just required. When there's abuse there and the mother or the children are being physically harmed, divorce is the answer if that person cannot change from their abusive habits, right? Because that's physical harm. But then there are some people that just want to get a divorce just because they aren't happy anymore, and that's their grounds. I'm just not happy anymore. Well, something went wrong somewhere. We don't like to talk about those things anymore, and we see the ramifications of not putting Christ first when the marriages come about and our divorce rate is through the roof. And I just have a passion for seeing the family together, and I don't want to see that, because when we have good marriages, we have good children. And guys, I want you to just, I don't know where y'all are at in your different lives. I talk to such a range of people, from you might be really young to you might be older. You might have already lost a spouse, been there, done that. You might be divorced, you might be looking for a spouse, or you might be happily married, or somewhere in between. But to just say, guys, our society will not get any better if our men are not acting like men. And it is honestly time to quit marrying boys, quit having babies with these boys, because these boys show the children how to be boys, and then the cycle just gets worse and worse. Our men have to act like men. They have to say sometimes the hard things. They have to do sometimes the hard things. That's what you're called to do. So please take these words of advice seriously, because in the marriage, men have to get it right. And I'm not saying that women don't mess up, but a lot of the times the women step out because the man wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing from the get-go, and we see marriages crumble. Not always the case. 100% get that. It's not always the case, but it is what we see more oftentimes than none. So pray over these things, sleep on these things, chew and meditate on them. I know they're hard. Nobody wants to hear we're wrong or, well, we need to sacrifice ourselves, but that's what we are called to do. And I have said in every single one of these videos, and I mean it, is a quote that I go by and I honestly mean. When we are you see people that are so busy serving themselves, they're so concerned with themselves, and they are always the most depressed people. When people can get their eyes off of themselves and do something for somebody else, it is a form of joy that only can be experienced when we take our eyes off of ourselves. So selfish people are usually the most depressed, and people that serve others are usually the most happy people in our society. So with all that being said, ladies, I'm coming at you next. I'm going to be talking to wives and some of the important things to remember within your marriage for your sake and your husband's sake and your children's sake. So stay tuned for the next video. Until then, men, act like men. God bless and happy homesteading, y'all.